So I want to talk about this here, right? This is called sulfur bitters, right? And I know a lot of us take a lot of our intake of sugar is very heavy, and the foods that we eat here in America is full of preservatives. And the reason why it's full of preservative is made for you to consume more sugar. If you look at most of the ingredients that we consume is heavy in preservatives, and that leads to us consuming more. And the difference between cocaine and sugar is that sugar is more of a slow killer and cocaine is more heavy on it. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is that over time, the more sugar that you consume is the more it will lead to diabetes, cancer, and I'm going to elaborate on cancer in a little bit, but all the sugar that we consume lead to sickness that's going to wait for us down the line. And this right here basically cuts the sugar in your body. If you notice people that go to dialysis, when they go to dialysis so they could basically get the sugar out their blood because their kidney doesn't function anymore. And the thing about cancer is that it feeds off sugar. Now, if your intake of sugar is a lot because of all the preservatives that's in the meats that you eat, the rice, the bread, sugar is everything that we eat basically turns into sugar. And the sugar that we consume, which is synthetic most of the time, it basically turns back on us. You could find it in juice, you could find it in the candy that we intake, and like I mentioned before, all of the things that we eat basically turns into sugar. And when you go on dialysis, you basically eventually will pass because that machine is going to take a toll on you. And as an experienced cab driver, I take a lot of people that's on dialysis, and a lot of time they end up passing. Now, you don't want to feed that sugar that's in your body. You want to fall back on some of it. And the more intake that you take of sugar, you're more than likely going to get sick later on in life, because if you're not flushing your system, you're not cutting the sugar that's in your body, it will come back and bite you. And when you have diabetes, basically you start losing limbs, and they're going to keep on cutting until there's nothing left to cut. And once some kidneys goes, there's no reversing that cycle. You know what I'm saying? The only thing I can recommend is to cut some of the sugar in your body, and drinking water is not going to cut it. The only thing that can cut sugar in the body is sulfur bitters. My grandmother used to give me this shit, and I'd be like, yo, why the fuck is this lady giving me this bullshit? I don't like this shit right here. But then later on, I started seeing the process of her giving this. When you travel to other countries like Europe and stuff like that, they don't have a lot of preservatives in their foods. America is the only country that they sells rubbish to people that gives us all these different sicknesses. They say cancer is in our body. It can't be in our body. It's never in our body. It's the preservatives that we consume from all the synthetic sugar, which is corn syrup, high fructose, and shit like that. I know a lady that commented on one of my videos, and she said she drink Welch, and all of the stuff that she drink from it is from concentrate. And anything that's concentrate is never good, because we're not taking, our intake of sugar is not natural, it's synthetic. And when something is not synthetic, it's man-made. And I see a lot of people promoting this that they eat vegan, and it's soy kills your testosterone. Soy is not good for you. And anything that's man-made is not organic. It's basically tweaked to a person's liking and their taste bud. But back to what I'm saying. And people that's vegan, how you vegan and you're fat? That makes no motherfucking sense. You know what I'm saying? As I mentioned before, when I travel to Europe, they have less preservatives in their food. If you look at the people then from the 80s and the people in the 90s, we were more healthier then than now. If you look at us right now, the more food we eat, the more fat we get. The blood needs to be thinned out so it could recalibrate itself back over again. And this is why I'm saying you don't have to take this one particular right here, but you need to take sulfur bitters to cut the sugar that's in your system. You don't have to take it. Do whatever you want to do. It's your life. Live it however you want to live it. But as I mentioned, Water is not going to cut the sugar in your system. I don't give a shit how much water you drink. You gotta take sulfur bitters to cut the sugar in your system. That's the only way, because American food is one of the worst foods to consume. We eat until we're full. We're not supposed to eat until we're full, because all of that right there turns into sugar into the system. And once it turns into sugar into the system, and as a matter of fact, if you notice, whenever you eat, right, if you're a truck driver, cab driver, or you eat anything, just eat sugar. Eat food, and you see how that shit just brings you to a slow. This is why we fall asleep, because the food turns into sugar after a couple of hours or something like that, maybe a half an hour, something like that, and it's less like you getting punched in slow motion and you're donezo. So, as I mentioned before, try to cut back on your intake of sugar, because the more sugar that you consume, you're liable to catch cancer, diabetes, any kind of sugar related shit you're gonna catch. You know what I'm saying? So cut back on your intake of sugar. The more sugar you consume, the more you're at risk to catch all these different diseases, because cancer don't go away. Cancer feed off sugar, diabetes feed off sugar, and once you go on that machine and you lose your kidneys, it's game over. So moving forward, you ain't got to take this right here, but thank me later, because your intake of sugar should be a minimum. And as I mentioned before, the people them in Europe, the people them in Thailand, and all these different foreign countries have less preservatives in their food. They lie to you and tell you that cancer is in your system. Your cancer is based upon the intake of food that you consume in your body. The more preservatives you eat, you're liable to catch cancer.